Hey Al, insight number 4. So we're in Alma 7 here. Now, a little messy in this one. We're in verses 1, 3, and 11 to 13. You're like, well, I'm just picking them out because there's so much good stuff. Now, keep in mind here, this is a big difference. So he's preaching now to Gideon, who largely know nothing of Christ. They've been away from the people of Zarahemla. They were mostly, not so much followers of the Antichrist, but caught up in that behavior, so they weren't learning the things of Christ. And it's not that they're anti-Christ, it's just that they're with lacking of knowledge of Christ, pretty much. So the sermon he gives here is very different to the one in Alma 5, but of the same purpose, and it's still telling his story of belief and why that's important. But he starts off here in Alma 7 teaching what Christ is actually going to do, because the people that he spoke to in Alma 5 knew what Christ was going to do. He reminded them of it. He gave them their self-interview questions first, and like, you remember what this is like, you remember this, you remember that, you remember what happened, okay, remember Jesus, and blah, 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 right? These people don't know. So he starts off with verse 1. He says, "Behold, my beloved brethren, seeing that I have been permitted to come unto you, therefore I attempt to address you in my language, yea, by my own mouth, seeing that it is the first time that I have spoken unto you by the words of my mouth. I have been wholly confined to the judgment seat, having had much business that I could not come unto you." So he's starting off with saying, hey, look, I was in this job where I couldn't come talk to you. I've left that because I need to come talk to you, and I'm going to use my words. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I'm not going to quote scripture to you. I'm going to teach you from my experience and what I know. I'm going to be a testimony to you how I know it, because I know that's going to mean a whole lot more to you. So Alma's personal testimony of Jesus, his experiences, his words, and we need more of this in our meetings. Again, like, great to read a story from a book or to share something from someone else, but what about you? Can we hear about you and your experiences from your words, even if it's broken English, or you get the grammar wrong, or the sentence structure's off, or even if you write it, the spelling's bad? We don't care. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your experiences were, and how is that going to help us? Because that's what helps us. Again, it's people's personal experiences that we learn from. People that we know that stand in front of us and can say, hey, this worked for me. Not in a way that's preachy, but in a way that they can say, hey, I felt this, and I know you can have that opportunity. And invite. Again, love, share, invite. Very, very cool. 3, he says, "And behold, I have come, having great hopes and much desire that I should find that ye had humbled yourselves before God, and that ye had continued in the supplicating of his grace. That I should find that ye were blameless before him, and that I would find that ye are not in the awful dilemma that our brethren were at Zarahemla." And then in verse 4 he goes on, "Blessed is the name of God, who has given me to know that you've given unto the exceedingly great joy of knowing that they are established again in the ways of his righteousness." So these people are actually trying to be more Christ-like. They're just lacking information on how to do that. So his prayers are answered. And he goes on to talk about the Spirit of God that's in him. He has much joy. He's sad of the afflictions and sorrows they've had because of the conflict that's been happening with this, like these antichrists and this religion stuff going on. And in 6 he says, "But behold, I trust that ye are not in such a state of unbelief as with your brethren. I trust that ye are not lifted up in the pride of your hearts, that you actually do want to know this." And then in 7, which is brilliant, and I will point out verse 7 because it's really cool. "But behold, I say unto you, there be many things to come, and behold, there is one thing which ye of more importance than they all, which is of more importance than they all. For behold, the time is not far distant that the Redeemer liveth and cometh among his people." That's the most important thing. There is one thing of most importance, and right there. So it's pretty cool. And then 11 to 13, which we'll cover in a sec, but let me just go off the first one. So yeah, verse 1 explains why he's there to teach. "I want to teach you." Verse 3, "I come to tell you something, one thing which is of more importance." That's in verse 7. Jesus is real and he will come. Now in 11 to 13, it talks about Christ. Now he's teaching Christ. Now this is Alma's personal experience of the sermon of Christ. And people know more Jesus when you speak from experience of how you met, why you met, and how he turned up, stepped up, and saved you. So Alma probably shared that, but he writes here, just of Christ's life, that, 11, he should go forth suffering, pains and afflictions and temptations of every kind. Now, we've heard this time and time again, and we've seen this happen. We know this is true. This is yet to happen. We know that it did. So, this is them telling them how it's going to happen. Pains and afflictions of every kind. He'll take on the sickness of his people. He did. All our pains and sicknesses. And 12, he will take upon him death, that he may loose the bands of death which bind his people, and he will take upon him their infirmities, that his bowels may be filled with mercy, according to the flesh, that he may know, according to the flesh, how to succor his people, according to their infirmities. So in other words, very basically, if you're suffering something, Christ has suffered it too, so he knows how to comfort you with perfect empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. He knows exactly how it feels, which I had a struggle with for a long time, because people would say, I had to pray about this because, he suffered in Gethsemane and he died on the cross, and therefore he knows what you're suffering. And I'm like, well, I haven't died on a cross and I didn't suffer in Gethsemane, so no, I think our suffering is quite different. But then I was gently reminded of the Spirit after praying and humbling myself about it, that Jesus suffered his entire life with being hated and spat on and yelled at and pushed around and abused in different ways, so that actually, he knows exactly what it feels like. 13, now the Spirit knoweth all things, nevertheless the Son of God suffereth according to the flesh, that he might take upon him the sins of his people, that he might blot out their transgressions, according to the power of his deliverance. And now behold, this is the testimony which is in me. So he's bearing testimony of it. Again, when you speak from experience of how, why, when, and how he turned up to step up and save you, that just how you met everything, that means so much more to people. They learn from that way more than just a simple testimony. If you can be your testimony in sacrament meeting and say, I met Jesus this week when he did this for me, and that helped me because of X, Y, Z. And it's comforting to know that he will turn up for me every time, and then end your testimony. That is going to mean more to people than a lot of things. It's the way you put it, and it really does work. So is this the kind of testimony that is in you? Is Jesus coming again of most importance to you? Because that's in verse 7 there. One thing which is of most importance. It's like a Yoda sentence. Get around the wrong way. One thing that's really important, the most important of all things, Jesus is coming. The most important of all things for us, Jesus is coming again. He's real. He already came once. He's coming again. Yeah, it's of one thing that's of most importance to us. And our temple president that's going to be for Auckland Temple, that, and for him and his dear wife, that is the thing that is paramount in their minds, and I admire them for that. They often say to me, we don't know when he'll come again. We've got to keep working. There's no retirement for us. There's no rest for us. We must keep working. We probably go before he will get back again, but we will work until he gets back somehow. And I'm just like, it's just the faith they have is incredible, because I'm like, I'll take a day off today and I'll go do this, go do that, and it's about me. And I'm like, they don't ever do that. It's incredible. And I'm like, I kind of need to improve on that. I still need rest time, yes, but there's a lot of things that I can improve around my daily, focus of the fact that him returning for a second time is the most important thing. It doesn't mean that I have to have a life exactly like theirs, because that's their life, not mine. Mine is my life for me, and I will do those things which Christ wants me to do. But I could focus more on the fact that the one thing of most importance is that he will come again. And for these people, it was that he was going to come at all. We know that he came. He's coming back, and he's there for us. That is the one thing above all other things that is of most importance. And that's what Alma was teaching them. Right, hang around. We're going to look at verses 23-27 and finish off chapter 7. I'll see you there.